Welcome to Where We Listen, where every story has value and every experience has meaning. Today, we're sharing Anna's story, a story of how everything in her life seemed to be falling into place, only to unravel in a matter of weeks. From a stable career to a long-term relationship, Anna had built a life that many would envy. But beneath the surface, things weren't as perfect as they seemed. What do you do when the foundation of your life cracks? When the things you've worked so hard for slip away? Today, we dive deep into Anna's journey, a story of losing it all, and the struggle to find herself again. Let's listen.
I was 28, and my life was exactly where I thought it should be. I had the job, the relationship, the future all mapped out. Or so I thought. People used to tell me I had it all figured out. In college, I was the type of person who planned everything down to the smallest detail: career goals, travel plans, even the kind of apartment I wanted to live in by the time I hit 30. I was determined to make it. Graduating with honors, I quickly landed a job in marketing at a prestigious firm. And I was in a relationship with John, my boyfriend of 7 years. We were the couple everyone assumed would get married soon, settle down, start a family. It all seemed so perfect, on the surface. But what I didn't realize was that life doesn't always follow the script you've written for yourself. It can tear that script apart in the blink of an eye. It started with small things. At work, I'd been climbing the ladder, or at least I thought I was. I worked harder than anyone. I stayed late, picked up extra projects, made myself available on weekends, all in the name of proving myself. The promotion I'd been eyeing was supposed to be mine any day now. But then a new manager came in, and with him, everything changed. From the moment he walked into the office, I could feel the shift. He wasn't impressed by my dedication or the late hours I put in. In fact, he didn't seem to care at all. I remember a project I'd spent weeks perfecting. I had stayed up until 3 a.m. most nights to make sure it was flawless. I presented it to him in a meeting, expecting at least some recognition. Instead, he glanced at it for barely a minute, then said coldly, "This isn't what I was looking for." I remember sitting there, stunned, as my colleagues exchanged awkward glances. I had never felt so small. I left that meeting feeling like the ground had been ripped out from under me. The project I had poured my heart into was dismissed in seconds, and I felt like my worth had vanished with it. From then on, it was a downhill spiral. Every time I tried to fix things, to improve, to show I was capable, it backfired. No matter how hard I worked, I could never seem to measure up. I started doubting myself. The anxiety became constant. I'd wake up in the middle of the night, heart racing, thinking about the mistakes I might have made or what disaster awaited me the next day. I began to hate going into work. The place I had once been excited about became the source of all my stress and self-doubt. I thought things couldn't get worse. But they did. During all of this, I was clinging to the idea that at least my personal life was stable. John and I had been together for so long that I took comfort in the thought that, no matter how bad things got at work, at least I had him. We had built a life together, or so I believed. But looking back, I realized that there had been cracks forming in our relationship for a while. At first, they were small. He started coming home late more often. Our conversations, once filled with laughter and plans for the future, became short and distant. I told myself it was just a rough patch. Every couple goes through that, right? I didn't want to believe that something deeper was wrong. But then came the night that changed everything. It was a Friday. We were supposed to go out to dinner, but John came home late from work, again. This time, he didn't even bother to make an excuse. I could tell something was off. We sat at the kitchen table, the silence between us heavier than usual. I tried to make small talk, but it felt forced. I could see him avoiding my eyes, fidgeting with his fork. And then he said it. "Anna. I've been thinking." His voice was calm, too calm, and that's when I knew. "I don't think this is working anymore," he said, not looking at me. My stomach dropped. I asked him what he meant, still hoping I was misunderstanding him. I don't know if I'm in love with you anymore, he continued, his voice flat, emotionless. It was like he was reading a script. I think I've felt this way for a while. I just didn't know how to tell you. I couldn't process it. 7 years. We had been together for 7 years. I thought we were going to get married. I thought he was my person. And now, in the space of a few sentences, he was ending it. I felt my entire body go numb. I begged him to stay, to talk it out, to go to counseling, anything. But it was too late. His mind was already made up. He had checked out long before that night. In less than a week, he packed his things and moved out. And just like that, the life we had built together was gone. Everything we had planned, the vacations, the future family, the house we talked about buying, it all evaporated. I was left alone in our apartment, surrounded by memories of a relationship that, as it turned out, had been crumbling for longer than I realized. I was devastated. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't eat. I barely left the apartment. I replayed every moment of our relationship in my head, wondering what I had missed, where I had gone wrong. How had I not seen this coming? How had I been so blind? And then, just when I thought I couldn't feel any lower, work came crashing down too. After John left, I started making more mistakes at the office. My mind wasn't in it anymore. The anxiety, the sleepless nights, the constant self-doubt, it all affected my performance. My boss noticed, of course. One day, I was called into his office. I knew it wasn't good, but I wasn't prepared for what came next. "We've decided to let you go," he said, without a hint of sympathy. "It's not working out." I sat there in shock, not knowing how to respond. I had never been fired before. In that moment, I felt like everything I had worked for had been ripped away from me. My job, my relationship, my sense of self, all gone in a matter of weeks. I felt like a failure. After I lost my job, I couldn't bring myself to tell anyone. I was too ashamed. I avoided my friends and family, making excuses for why I couldn't see them. Every day, I got dressed like I was still going to work, but instead, I wandered the city. I would sit in parks, coffee shops, anywhere where I could be invisible, lost in my own thoughts. I was too afraid to face the truth. Too afraid to admit that I had lost everything I had spent years building. The weight of it all was unbearable. I felt like I was sinking, drowning in my own failures. Every day was a struggle just to get out of bed. I didn't know who I was anymore. Everything that had once defined me, my career, my relationship, was gone, and I was left with nothing but emptiness. I had no idea how I was going to rebuild my life. I didn't even know if I could. But I knew one thing, I couldn't stay where I was. Something had to change, or I would lose myself completely.
Anna's story is one many of us can relate to, in one way or another. It's a powerful reminder of how quickly life can shift, how the things we've built our lives around can crumble, leaving us feeling lost, confused, and alone. But it's in these moments of collapse that we often find the space to rebuild. For Anna, losing her job and her relationship felt like the end of everything she had known. But perhaps it was also the beginning of something new, an opportunity to rediscover who she was outside of the role she had clung to for so long. And that's the lesson we can take from her story. Sometimes, we define ourselves so much by our relationships or our careers that when they fall apart, we think we've lost who we are. But maybe, just maybe, losing those things is what gives us the chance to find who we truly are. Now, let me ask you this: have you ever experienced a moment in your life when everything seemed to fall apart? How did you find the strength to move forward? And what did you learn about yourself in the process? Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more real-life stories and life lessons. Thanks for your listening.